Welcome back to Steve Rob Reviews. Today I'm going to review what I think is the best camping cooler for you. Not for me, but for you. So I'm going to go over just some of the coolers that I have. And I bought a new one, and this is the Igloo Playmate. Now I've got a smaller version of this one already. And I'm going to go over this, and I got some improvements to it to do to get it ready for when I start traveling up north. So let's just first start off with, I've been using camping coolers for about 40 years, and in the last 3 years, I have a fridge up at my place up in Northern Ontario, so I don't need to have a cooler while I'm up there, because of course now I got a fridge and I'm completely off grid. So my fridge works on a power inverter. It's a small little, like a bar fridge. I think it's about 4 cubic feet, and it's got a small little freezer in there too. And it runs off the batteries and a power inverter and a solar panel. So I don't need the coolers like I did in the past. And these are some of the coolers that I've brought up in the past. And that one right up there is my last purchase that I bought for a cooler. And I only use the coolers really from any time that it's about 70 degrees up. Because under 70 degrees, like in the early spring or late fall, well, I don't have the fridge on because the batteries are too cold, they don't have the capacity, so I use a cooler. So I'm going to go over this one here, but the first thing that a lot of people are interested in is, do you use ice cubes or ice blocks? Well, I'll tell you, in my experience, ice blocks last the longest, but ice cubes keep your product colder, faster, but they, of course, they don't last as long. And how long do you need something to last? So this particular unit here, I only need this to last me, well, 8 hours. That's all I need is 8 hours. So I got my driving time, and then I have to turn my fridge on when I get up there, wait till it stabilizes, gets nice and cool, and then I can transfer everything from the cooler inside my fridge. Now years ago, well, I couldn't do that. So I went with ice blocks. And ice blocks by far are the best. I make my own ice blocks, and I just put them in my deep freezer. And ice blocks for me always lasted me between, depending on the temperature, between 3 and 5 days. And that one up there, the Pelican, 5 days, no problem, rock solid performance out of that one there. So let's start off with something basic that a lot of people don't think about, and that is, this one here is just a cooler that my wife uses, and she just throws one of these in, one of these gel packs, just to go to the grocery store. She leaves that in the car, so she goes in grocery shop and she brings it out, and maybe she's got like a 20-minute, a half-hour drive. Well, in the summertime when it's really, really hot, she puts it right on top here. And it's easy. You don't have to worry about the ice, the water, the mess, and everything else. And this type of cooler for her is just great. It was like a $10 cooler, nice and light, no problems. And for her, that is the best that she needs. So just a couple of them ice, them blue ice packs, and you're good. So let's move on to some of these coolers here before I finish off with this one, because this one here is going to be divulging some new products that I'm going to incorporate into this. And so let's start off with the big coolers, and I'll show some tips and some stuff that I've done over the years that maybe you could get something out of, and maybe it would fit into your design when you're going camping, because camping is all about being organized, especially in your cooler. And another big topic would be, should you drain the water out of your cooler all the time? Well, I've tried both, and unless you're just putting like having a whole cooler full of, say, cans and bottles, well, just leave it in there with the water, leave the ice in there. If you've got ice cubes, just leave it as is, and you're fine just like that. But if you're having meats and salads and vegetables or whatever inside your cooler, well, I found that if you drain the water out, the ice will last longer, because of course you're not into a great big giant cesspool of water all the time as well. And I did find that yeah, the ice does melt faster if you have a lot of liquids in your cooler. So it's best to drain it off all the time. And that's why they put drains on them as well, right? So let's get to a couple of tips here on a cooler, and let me know what you think in the comments below. And let me know what you think the best cooler is that you've ever had and which brand, because these are all different brands. So we can go from Pelican to Coleman to Igloo. This is Coleman, you know, and what coolers are the best? Well, the coolers that are the best are the ones that work for you. And this little Igloo Playmate here is a 16 quart. It's just ideal for my needs, but I got to do some improvements to it, and I'll save that to the end. So let's get started over here with the big coolers. Okay, so that's the Coleman Extreme there, and this is their version of the Igloo, and two different sizes, but generally they do different things for me, because when I was bringing up a cooler all the time, I'd bring that one there with only put drinks in it, and this one here only for my food. So the first thing you could notice is I put a weather strip. You can just buy this at your hardware store, and it's just weather stripping, and it's not very thick either, but it's just you peel and stick. You just take the paper off one side and stick it on. And the first thing I noticed when I got this cooler is the first thing I do when I check with every cooler is I get the cooler brand new, and I put about a gallon of water in it, turn it upside down. And if it's just pouring water out there, well, you know it's not sealing that great. And if we take a look there, you could see how much room that is taken up. It's taken up a lot of room with that gasket in there. So that was a good idea. And of course I built this here. Now this is just a aluminum rack system that I have in here. And the best thing about a cooler that you could ever do is try not to have your ice touch anything. Because take for instance, I've seen a lot of people will buy an ice block, and they got a whole bunch of bottles stacked up against the ice block, and the first thing that'll happen is you'll see the shape of the bottle soon form right into the ice block as it melts. So you're best to keep the ice completely away. So if we take a look over here, this was the Rubbermaid tote that I got. Like these are about a whole bunch, and they're like $5 each. Fill it up with water, and that's my ice block, and it would fit right in here. So I can just take this out, put the ice block in here, and that's it. So I got lots of room to put whatever I want in here and over here. And this is just a little bit of a drink holder here. So on my way back, when I'm traveling back home, I don't have to worry about anything that would tip over if I put a drink here that's open. And of course, I stuck myself a little thermometer in there. So that's a good tip there that you can do. And it's worked out fine for me. And like I say, I only use these coolers in the off season when it's cold. You know, of course, when I'm inside the cabin, I got the wood stove on. Well, I don't have the fridge working. So let's move on to the most recent purchase that I bought before the Igloo Playmate, and that would be the Pelican, and we'll take a look at that one next. Okay, so here's the Pelican, and it's the 30 quart. And this is an expensive cooler. I paid about $250 for this, but you know, it is an awesome cooler. It's got about the best latches ever. Now when I'm up at my cabin, I just leave the latches open and lift it up and down. I don't have to latch it all the time because this is only for transport, and it seals great. Now I'll show you the little bit of a setup I have in here, and this is just little bit of an insert that I made. And again, I put my ice block on this side, I put all my food on this side. And generally, for all the coolers that I've ever operated, you have to put a minimum of 30% ice for your cooler, or it doesn't really do too much anyways, right? You got to actually think about the amount of space that you have available in a camping cooler and how much you're going to utilize. So there's no sense in getting a great big giant camping cooler and you're going to put very little in it. So you have to actually have, well, multiple coolers, or you're going to be putting in a lot of ice to last you any more than a couple of days. But that one right there is a rock solid 5 days, and it's got like a fridge seal going around here. And this is just a awesome cooler. There's nothing I can say bad about it, except, do you really need that? If you're just going out for the day, or if you're just going out for a couple of days, this is fine for 60 bucks compared to 250, right? So I mean, I got this because when I go up in the off season, I'm good for 5 days, no problem. And this one here, well, it can do the exact same thing for a lot less, but of course this is a little bit smaller than this one, and of course the Igloo I showed before is a little bit bigger. So you got all kinds of different options, and if you got lots of money, well, tell you the truth, I really like the Pelican. So let's get on to the Playmate, the Igloo Playmate 16 quart that I just bought, and I'm going to show you some features there, and I'll share some tips about making your ice last longer that a lot of people don't really think about. So let's get to that next. Okay, so I do have this one here in a lot smaller version, and it is, I would say, a 24-hour cooler at best in all the experiences that I've had with this particular type. And it's very simple to operate. You just got a little lever you press here, and you can open it up, and it opens right up wide like this. And I'll tell you something, this is exactly what I need, and this is 13 inches across, 8.5 inches wide, and that's all I really need. So the only thing I'm going to do that's different in this particular situation is the amount of items that I put in here would not fill anything. Now if we just go over to here, here's your regular ice cube maker here. So usually I would just take 4 of these ice cubes trays, dump them in here, and then I would take my tray, like this is just real cheap stuff you can just buy at your dollar store. This was $2, I believe. You put it in here like this, and that's where you can put everything, and your ice will be underneath. So I'm going to have about 3 inches of ice on the bottom. Put this in, and I'm almost good, except I got to add one more thing. But before that, I just want to show you, I found these ice cubes trays at the store. And I'll tell you something, these are pretty slick. I haven't had a chance to use them yet, but these are like a silicone bottom here. This is kind of flexible. And the ice cubes are actually about 2 inches square. So I've got 4 of them there. And I'm just going to make a set of 4 ice cubes, throw them in there, and I know I'm good for 8 hours. And then all I have to do is put this over top of the ice cube so it'll sit in about like this. So there's one more thing I have to do, and that is add a layer of insulation for this, a very simple and basic one. And I'll tell you something, for all my coolers, I've always used like a green garbage bag or a piece of 6 mil plastic vapor barrier. And take for instance on this cooler here, take for instance if I only had it filled with drinks to about here, well, I would put the 6 mil plastic on top because it's all sealing in the air. Now, of course, on a cooler, all the air, the ice drops to the bottom. So as you go up in a cooler, the temperature will rise and rise and rise and rise right to the top. So the temperature up here is definitely a lot hotter than ice cold down on the bottom. So if you just put a layer of plastic over top, like down here, say if you had all cans in there, you know, with your ice, it will stay colder and it will stay refrigerated a lot better, and your ice will not melt as fast if you put that sheet of plastic over top. And I'll show you what I'm going to use for this, and I'll cut a piece and then I'll bring you back and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so let's see what I got going on here. Okay, so I just put this in here to simulate some ice down the bottom there. And so here's my rack, and I'll put all my whatever I have in there, like my meats and salads or whatever I bring up with me. And you could see the amount of space, the airspace between here and there. And then if we take a look at this top, you could see that this top itself is, you know, quite large, right? So this would have to be all cooled as well. And that's a problem. So I'm going to make a huge betterment here. And like I said, I think I got the last measurements wrong. It's 13.5 across, 8.5 here, and 8.5 deep. Now, of course, these sides are taller, but you really can't use it because, you know, you can only go as high as here, right? So I picked this up at my dollar store, and they are just ordinary cheap cutting boards. So that's exactly what I did, is I took one of them cutting boards instead of using a piece of plastic, because these are like mold resistant and you know, they're pretty good lasting, right? So all I did was take one and cut it up. So here's just a regular, looks like a cutting board, and I just rounded off the edges using an X-Acto knife, and I'll just place that right in there like this, and it'll sit in there nice and flat. Or if I have anything that's sticking up, it'll just sit as far as there. And this way here, it keeps everything inside. And on your cooler, you can use like an ordinary, like I said, a plastic bag if you want, like a, you know, a garbage bag, and it lays down flat, and it will keep your ice lasting a lot longer. Then when I want to take it out, I can just, it's easy to take out, right? So I mean, that is a huge improvement right there, because if you want to make the ice last longer, well, that's the whole idea. Now, I will not be putting any drinks in here. So I use this for my drinks all summer long, and I fill this with ice, then I fill it with water, and I'm good for 4 days. Can you imagine 4 days? That's ice cold. I still have ice cubes in there after 4 days. So I like using you know, the Stanley for just leave this out in my shop, up in my camp. And whenever I get thirsty, well, I just got a drink right there. I don't have to walk inside or grab water bottles and none of that stuff, because this here is portable. And, you know, if I want to drink on the way up, well, I've got something, right? So this is probably the best tips you could get. And I really like these. I'm looking forward to trying these out, these 2-inch square, you know, with the silicone rubber on the bottom here. I think that's cool for pushing it out. And I mean, for the price, well, these were $2, right? I got 4 of them. So I'm set for the whole summer now. And so in the end, what is the best camping cooler to buy? So the best camping cooler to buy is the one that you can afford and the one that suits your needs. This one here, nah, not good for 5 days, not even close. 24 hours is about it. And for me, this is the best. Just grab it, take all my stuff up to my camp, and I'm good because I got a fridge up there. A lot of people that don't, like I did years ago, well, I would say if you can afford the Pelican, that's a good one. But you know, I always got along just fine with the Coleman Extreme or the Igloo. Prior to that, with putting in an ice rack inside with an ice block, I did fine. But of course, everybody likes to buy, you know, what they think that they can use. But a lot of people are buying coolers that they just can't use. Like, what's the sense of spending $300 or more on a cooler that you're just going out for the day with? Might as well just grab one of these, right? And or a little bit bigger for, you know, like 60 bucks, 70 bucks for a cooler. I mean, this idea of spending huge dollars on the best camping cooler out there, especially if you're only going out for a day or two, well, you can save yourself a lot of money and just buy a $60 cooler. When I first started camping, I was using styrofoam. Yeah, they used to make styrofoam coolers. That's all they were, with styrofoam. That's all it was. And I survived quite well. So the years, technology has got a lot better to the point where we've got like these Pelican coolers that are roto-molded. And, you know, they are terrific. We never had any of that technology back then. All we had was just like 40, 50 years ago was just styrofoam coolers. The advent of steel coolers came next. And then we got into the plastics. And I'm saying the best cooler out there is the one that works for you, not for the other people that you see on YouTube that are, well, trying to sell you a cooler. And, you know, I'm not here to sell you nothing. So thanks for joining me here today. I hope you picked up a couple of tips. And the best one is put something on top of your stuff, you know, while it's in the cooler, because like most coolers, you know, the ice deteriorates, but the space, the air space above increases, and that's when it melts even faster. But if you just put something down over top, well, it makes a huge difference. You try it and let me know in the future. So until then, come back again. If you haven't seen this channel before, you're welcome to subscribe and get some real reviews with some real ideas that really work. Cheers.